It is the Anfield Wrap in association with RedsBet. RedsBet, the gambling company who give half of their profits, i.e. your losses, to fan-related initiatives. If you do want to sign up with them, please do so. RedsBet.com. If it's not for you, that's absolutely fine, and always be gamble aware. I have with me Mike Nevin, John Gibbons, and Adam Melia.
Should be pointed out, Mike Nevin's doing an excellent travel diary for RedsBet this season. I'm enjoying it.
Oh yeah,
I've been reviewing every game. Bit like your thing, actually.
Yeah, it's from a day out point of view rather than
not too much match stuff.
Them lads on the pitch.
Yeah,
it's good.
But them lads on the pitch are doing all right. So
they are, yeah.
I mean, we can talk about them, and we can talk about them in a warm manner. Liverpool versus Crystal Palace, and my first question really is about nerves. I'm going to talk about your personal nerves in a minute, but my first question is, do you actually think we looked nervy before 70 minutes, Mike? Because this is one of them when I was living my own reality throughout the 90 minutes, but then when I watched the game back, I think it obviously helps getting the goal straight after half-time, the equaliser, but I didn't really ever feel before 70 minutes as though this Liverpool side looked particularly unnerved by what Crystal Palace were doing. It didn't look to me like it was one where the occasion or the pressure or anything like that got on them. They were just playing a football match. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. You get caught up in the chaos of the game when you're there, and you view things completely differently, I think, than when you watch it back cold. On Saturday night, I watched about 40 minutes of the second half and saw Liverpool sort of consistently passing the ball around, Henderson and Firmino prominent. There wasn't loads of panic. By that time, obviously, we got ahead. And scoring so early after the half-time interval, I think, just sort of reduced any nerves. It would have been far more nerve-wracking had we not scored straight away. But I think, just generally speaking, the game was weird because there's a lot of talk about it being the same chaotic Liverpool as last season. I didn't actually think it was. I mean, Palace only had 3 shots and one header that went wide. Other than that, it was worrying because of the context, and obviously you need to win. But apart from that, I didn't feel particularly nervous. The only time we really got a bit frantic was right at the end. But other than that, no, I thought Liverpool sort of generally coped with it pretty well.
It's natural, I think, John, to be nervous at the end of games. I think the players, and we've seen this before in Liverpool history, I actually think the players coped with everything that was going on better than the crowd did. I think lots of heads were going all over the place, I felt, in the crowd. And when there's one goal in it, whether it's 1-0 or 4-3, at the end of a match, there's likely to be some sort of nervy moments. I think it's fine to be, in any game of football, any side that's leading and defending a narrow lead with 10 to go, you're going to feel under the cosh. For me, there was nothing out of the ordinary about Liverpool other than the fact that they conceded 3 goals.
I thought they looked not necessarily nervous, but a bit frustrated at time. I think that the Salah sort of dives probably a little bit of that, really, where they must have got to 30 and thought, hang on, we haven't had a proper shot yet, and there must have been that sort of playing in the minds, really, that even though I thought first 10 we were actually quite good, and then after that I didn't think we were terrible, but there must have been a bit where they're starting to thinking, we haven't had a decent effort yet, and that must start to play on your mind as a football team, especially a football team that prides itself on creating a lot of chances. And so I think that must have been playing on the mind a little bit. I thought the reaction when they went to 1-1 was a mixed one. I thought there was celebrations, obviously, as you'd expect, but there was a bit of I thought there was a little bit of relief as well, and a little bit of geeing up the crowd sort of thing, which you see when I think they thought the 10 after this needs to be big, and it was, to be fair. They kind of scored again, so there was elements of it. But look, it's easy for them lads, they get to kick it away and stuff like that. It's harder for us. So I think they'd be good if they acknowledged that this morning. They came out.
Yeah,
thanks a lot to Gibbo, particularly.
For keeping his head.
for making Rob coming in, he left at half time. He just said he couldn't cope. He just said he was a mess. I saw Rob at half time. He was a disgrace. so just by talking Rob around, I feel like I did my job.
I did a little bit there. The game spiraled out of control, Adam, a little bit, and that's partially. It's worth pointing out that that's a little bit of what they do. It's what they're good at. Against us, it feels like, but also it's a bit of what they played for. I think you saw first half before they scored, they had a sort of a 3-minute flurry. It was as though they were set up and made the decision that they weren't really gonna. They were gonna just hang in the game, rely on the fact that they've got a really solid, consistent back four, more of which to come. But then when they get the chance to attack, they'll do so in a big flurry, and then they'll get the shape back.
Yeah, I think it may be suited us that it ended up being a wilder game, and it wasn't. It sort of it became wild. It went through the gears, I guess. Because I thought, as the same as John, really, I thought we were maybe not nervy, but playing tight. I thought we were snatching at things a bit, and like you say, even though there's something in certainly the handball. It became a little bit. It sometimes just becomes a little bit of a thing where you look like you're a team that's just shouting for things, and it's like snatching at shots. It's the same sort of thing where you make yourself look a bit desperate, even if there is something to shout for. You're sort of giving yourself away. You're giving the mentality away a little bit that you are kind of feeling like, oh, we've usually scored by now. And you're starting to feel frustrated at what looks like a huge solid giants but standing in your way, and with a midfield ably backing them up, and like they're starting to look like an impenetrable wall, with the other things of this kind of the old goalkeeper nightmare that we've seen in the past, where everyone thinks, well, that's good, the goalie's old, and then they end up being throwing a worldy performance in, which I was fully expecting when we went in 1-0 at half time. That was what the second half was going to look like. So you kind of there is kind of the difference between your own mentality and the things that you're going through, and the daft things that you're comparing it to in the past, which the players certainly aren't doing as they're on the pitch. But I think that as it was, we once we were 2-1 up, it was going to go one of two ways, and the fact that they scored so quickly after that meant that it was going to necessarily need to be wild, and that we would probably end up winning 4-2. I thought at that point, because. And then how it ends up is an even more wild version of that, which is almost like the Arsenal 4-4, where everything they do seems to be a goal, and you just kind of and what you said, Neil, was that you didn't think there was too many heads going on the pitch. I'm not sure about that, really. I think that some of the players' reactions on the final whistle said to me that there might be some words had afterwards. I think there
was something in the last 10. And my point is more, I think it's only the last 10 where I think which, as I say, is something that happens during all football matches. I'm talking more about the first 70 when I said they kept it under. Right. I think last 10, I think everyone's gone somewhere last 10, including their players. I think everyone's suddenly in the madness, the maelstrom of all of this, trying to hold themselves together, and that is definitely happening then. Yeah.
So, and like I say, I just think we get there through moving through different gears emotionally in a way, and. It's with every goal, it becomes a different sort of game that we've seen before, I think, and so like I was saying to you just before, Neil, I think I kind of like the only way I can reconcile it, because I wasn't good at half time, and I wasn't good at half time against Brighton, and I saw Rob at half time at Brighton, actually, funnily enough, and then and so I've had exactly that conversation, and I think the only way, and I was definitely not feeling like, because what we've said in the week preceding this game is the players aren't as nervous as we are. At least the players aren't feeling it like we are, and I'm not sure we can kind of say that now. But I've realigned my barometers by thinking that actually we've kind of like it was a 4-2 sort of a game. When it went 2-2, it was the game that Liverpool ended up winning 4-2, and when Mane scored, it was that thing of there we go, job done. And the fact that it kind of didn't end up like that is almost by the by.
By the by, I think the other thing about it, Mike, was it reminded me, and I think you actually see it in their opening goal. It reminded me a little bit of the away games that we've had recently. I'm thinking about Brighton, Burnley, Watford, to go all the way back to November, if you can still say that that's recently. But where it is a quietish first period, where Liverpool do look like they're being frustrated, but then something happens in the last 10, just before half-time, where the opposition begin to get themselves into a bit of trouble and get themselves a bit tired. And then we come out and we either grind them before then or grind them after the break. And it was a bit like an away game up to that point. Like that was the way in which it was playing out. And I think it's interesting. I think there's a couple of players who don't cover themselves in glory in the build up to their first goal. But I think one of the reasons why is they're all going, now. We win this back now, and we're in and we score.
Well, that was the nature of the goal, really, is that Palace actually extricated themselves from Liverpool's press really, really well. I think there was one point where the ball's just outside their box, and there's three players on their man, but they have the sort of the ability to sort of withstand the pressure there and get the ball out, and that sort of slightly alters Liverpool's shape. And obviously, once Salah gets in that position, I think there was criticism of Milner saying he had a torrid afternoon, and Salah did give him the run around at times, but in that instance I just don't know what he can do, because he's completely exposed. It's one-on-one. He's obviously got more pace and he beats him by a mile, but just in reference to what you're saying there about it feeling like an away game, I just think it's more to do with the fact that at home we've learned to play patiently. There isn't so much of us going out with a massively high tempo at the start. We've become patient in terms of waiting for goals, and we've also developed a knack, not necessarily the other day, or Saturday rather, but of actually scoring almost out of nothing. I mean, it's to an extent that happens because we score straight after half time. But the amount of times where we've scored a key goal, an opening goal this season, where it hasn't really been as a result of a build-up of pressure, is actually one of the strongest things about Liverpool this season. But as I say, just a patient approach, and the idea is that on the half hour you score as opposed to Palace going ahead.
Adam, there's something else I think it's worth saying about these players. I think it's two really good shows of strength, both at 1-0, and it is just after half-time, so, a lot of sides at home in that instance, but it looked to me like... It was really strange in that we scored really quickly after half-time, but it really looked to me like we'd very much set the pattern of how the second half was going to look if we weren't going to score early, which is we were just going to have wave after wave after one of the... Van Dijk's having the shot from distance, partially because he's so far forward, arriving onto the ball, the way in which he's like, this is the way this game goes now, lads. And then there was another, I think, big show of strength at 2-2, when they've just been on top for 5 minutes, and I think that as a collective, that set of players wrestled the initiative back and got themselves right back on top of Palace. I think that they're two big shows of strength.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's the sort of thing that we've seen done to us in the past, and you have to hold your hand up and say that was brilliant how they managed the game and how they managed to get the momentum back after kind of we scored. So but that would be us talking in Palace's shoes, I guess, because it's once we go 2-1 up, it's almost like it's happened very quickly. But that's happened with us in the past. It happened against Arsenal. We ended up winning 5-1. So massive credit to Palace for managing to get a bit of momentum back their way, and the fact that we have not let that flap us when it was, it felt like a huge blow, that 2-2 to the fans. But the fact that Liverpool managed to get back to, as you say, the pattern of the start of the second half, where we are exerting wave after wave upon them, is fantastic, really, and it does speak to our greater mental strength this season as a team. John,
there's something in... I sort of, after again watching it back, I sort of ended up concluding that James Milner probably has the best bad game I can ever remember anyone having, where he at times deals really rather well with Zaha, whilst you can see he's hanging on for dear life in terms of dealing with him, but he's not winning his battle, but he's certainly not losing it as badly as you'd have seen some players lose it in that circumstance and under that much pressure, under that much focus. And then the flip side is, he gets that assist for the third. He's constantly a threat. He's making the pitch huge, and it'd be the easiest thing in the world to play right back in that instance and just go, I'm standing by my centre back here and I'm preparing for the worst. Whereas he doesn't do that. He shows massive character all the way through, I think.
Yeah, I was made up for him after the third goal, him in particular, because he had such a tough afternoon, and he just consistently does a great job for his team, doesn't he? And puts himself out there. He's prepared to go there and play right back against Zaha. Whereas a lot of midfielders who've won what he's won, and he's won more than anyone else in this squad. And he could have a right to go, do you know what, Jürgen, I've done a year at left back for you now. Sod off, play me in midfield, or we'll just leave it. But he must have known going into that I'm going to have a tough day, and he does. But I thought any of our right backs would have. It was. Trent, he's given Trent a tough time in the past, and I think I decided that the ideal situation would have been to play Klein in that game and then sell him, and then everyone would have been all right with it. Because everyone's been losing their heads over. There's
no way Klein gets in that position, by the way, to set up the third
goal.
No,
he doesn't.
And I think Steve said it on the post-match show. If that was me, if I was marking Zaha, I'd never be making that run to put the ball in.
And it's fair enough. If I'm going to be a little critical, I think he could show him inside a little bit more, Jen. generally, I'm with Mike for the first goal. He's completely exposed, but generally speaking, I think there's, he's going down the line a little bit too easy. But then maybe that's up to the defensive midfielders. Maybe he's looking around, and if he's got cover one side, I think Henderson had a little bit of a go a couple of times to support him, but generally, I'm not sure he was supported enough throughout the game. If I am honest,
is there something though, in John, in that where shape, our attacking shape, our shape is so important to us both in and out of possession, and we see being out of possession is actually the thing you do before you then counter attack. That I think we've struggled with this in the past, not just with Milner in this game, but when there is a situation where a normal, in inverted commas, football team would do some firefighting.
Yeah.
Instead, what we do is we almost go, we'll trust our lad and we'll let him get on with it. And there's sometimes where that you can do that and it doesn't work for you. I think that was an example of it, really, where we've got to have our shape. We don't compromise our shape. We don't shift our shape. We play like this.
I think maybe, look, Mike was right to highlight the pressing for that first goal, and we can't say we want to be a pressing team, but then we never want to be exposed, because it's a contradiction there.
Yeah.
If you accept that you're going to press high, and we nearly won it a couple of times, I must say that I think Mike's right to say that a couple of the lads did well, but also there's one that bounced off the shins where Firmino just nicks it. I think it was him, or it might have been Keita, and they sort of got away with it before they then did the sort of good thing, and so I do think you need to accept that. If you are, there's no perfect way to defend. If there was, then everyone would just defend the same way. It's not man behind the ball. It's not pressing. It's not, there's pros and cons to each, and it's all to do with, how well you do it really and what kind of suits you. So I think, we need to accept that if we are going to be a pressing team, then we're going to end up in a situation where people are exposed. But I just think there was two of them there playing holding, if you like, a 4-2-3-1, and I think that allows you more than a 4-3-3 to give your fullbacks a little bit of cover. And I think if I was Milner, I'd have maybe had the word at half time and went, come on, there's two of you there, there's two of you, and maybe one of you will get dragged every now and again, but give us an hand, because Robbo's sound, he's having a lovely afternoon. Do you know what I mean? And so I don't know. I just think maybe if I was James Milner, that's what I'd be saying at half time.
Yeah, I think probably there was quite a lot of responsibility which wasn't necessarily taken on by both Henderson and Firmino to get across, because it was obvious that they were going to target that side. Everyone in the league has seen Robertson and his ability, his pace and his recovery ability. Milner, albeit that he does his best at right back, isn't a natural left back. Doesn't have the pace. They've got so hard. It's just inevitable that they were going to go down.
And Salah's on that side, who doesn't offer as much.
Yeah, and
equally, Mane was as well. Mane was in front.
Although, and then equally as well, there isn't the same level of support defensively on the inside with Matip, who I thought sort of had one of those games where I think you just not aggression in the sense of being physical, but just committing to things. I thought he switches off too much for me and just sort of gets dragged out of position.
You can imagine. I was sort of picturing Joe Gomez and the greatest speed that he would have had there to back up James Milner. I think it would have made a massive difference.
And get closer to him as well.
Yeah.
I think that's where I think if he was looking for support, Milner, and when the manager looks back on it, not least because at the ground I repeatedly saw Klopp talking to Fabinho and Henderson, and he didn't seem to be irritated by where they were. I
thought they both had good games.
Yeah, so I think to the what my point is, it wasn't like the manager was going, "You've got to get there." It was that Henderson was then telling other people, "Can you get there?" Or Fabinho did a couple of times, "Can you get there?" But I think the one where if I'd be frustrated, maybe might be he needed more from the centre back. I do wonder if he just needed more from the centre back to come over, and maybe everyone shifts a little bit. Maybe someone's got to tell Virgil, listen, you've just got to come in a little bit more, play a little bit more right through the middle for us here, because we've got to go and help this. But also because there was points in the game, Mike, where you'll be in the cops, so you'll be able to see it even better than me, where every single footballer was on that side of the pitch. Where literally, if you drew a line down the middle of the pitch, every player was on that side. I couldn't believe that, really, and it's the first time I've seen something like that for a while.
It did look sort of bizarrely lopsided at times, but that's the way that just games begin to play out. They take on a pattern of their own, and that was very much the thing. But I thought, just generally speaking, it's so easy to get caught up in your deficiencies in a game. At the end of the day, Liverpool turnarounds, a half-time deficit and score 4 goals in the second half, and you've got to take that on board and say, you know, that's an incredible show.
And all those lads jumped in on that.
I mean, and most players were involved in some way, shape, or form. And I think more than anything else, what I come out of the game with is it's about the character that they show more than anything else. Because it's difficult trailing at half time. You've got time to dwell on that and what are you going to do. And it's great that you get straight back into it. But to score, I mean, United did that for years, didn't they? Where they'd get, you know, they'd be trailing, but they'd score twice within 5 or 6 minutes. And to actually sort of grasp the nettle when you get that equaliser, when the blood's flowing, I think is testament to the character. And then they showed it again at 2-2.
There's some real fight, isn't there? And I think Salah personifies that. I think he was having a real like battle of a day, and you know you can see it in his 2 finishes. You know, that it's sort of the poacher's position kind of thing, isn't it? And he was scrapping for everything and you know, determined to get the win.
I think even the incident where he does dive in the first half and he's surrounded by the Palace players, that seemed to sort of really energise him. I mean, not that he wasn't, you know, fully committed to before then, but all of a sudden he just got that sort of gnarly look about him.
I'm going to score against you.
I think it's remarkable how much he's sort of changed as a player in the space of 6 months, because, you know, from this sort of free-flowing, pacey, sort of wide man scoring spectacular goals, now he's just become an out-and-out centre-forward with a real sort of poacher's knack. I mean, the positions that he takes up for those 2 goals, I mean, obviously the second one, you know, he's just knocking it over the line, but his awareness really as that ball flies off the defender for the first one. And the finish is just, I mean,
the finish is tremendous.
The finish is massively underplayed because it's not from far out, but the decision to take it in that way is improvisation at its best, and it would have been so much easier to just swivel round and hit it with his right. So to just sort of, I don't know, hang out a leg and hook
it's one where you get screwed on the XG on that, Neil.
Yeah, it is one you get screwed on the XG.
You know, it's a fantastic finish. As I say,
to be fair, the commentary team, I think it was the American commentators I had. It was NBC or something. They were really praising it highly straight away. Before I even realised how good a finish it was.
It's in the inside of the net. I think that's one thing. It's in the side of the side netting. I think that's the thing that when I got to see it back and not just in the ground. In the ground, it just sort of ricochets up and he kicks it into a goal and the keeper's nowhere. When you actually watch it back, it's placed. It's placed into that bit where, you know, I think Speroni's not great for the third by any stretch of the imagination. But I actually don't think there's much he can, unless he comes and just clears everything out before it reaches Salah, which is maybe what some keepers would do. Maybe it's what our keeper would do. If he's not going to do that, he can't really do much more if the lad kicks it into the corner of the goal from 6 yards out on the volley.
But Mike's right as well to point out that he's just quicker thinking than everyone else as well, isn't it? And that's kind of a real striker's instinct that you wouldn't have guessed you'd get from him when you got this winger who could weigh in with a few. You know, he's just, you know, that loops up the Van Dijk shot, doesn't it? And he's just, everyone else has stood about it.
He's in so much space.
Yeah, and he's just moving. And the similar one for the Milner one, you know, no one really knows where he's going to go, but he's gambling. He's kind of in there, isn't he? Like Rushy, really, kind of doing that. And that's been a real kind of unexpected kind of bonus from him, is that, you know, we as Mike says, we saw the great goals that he could score and we know all about his skill, but getting the cheap ones as well, that helps you get up to 50 a lot quicker, doesn't it?
There's another thing about being switched on as well, because when Van Dijk goes for the shot, it'd be quite easy just to drift offside, and yet he's aware enough to say, right, I've got to get back, and then obviously when it spins in the air, he's in a great position without having come back out too far. So he's just constantly aware of where he is on the pitch, and the ability. I think the way that he's managed to transform from a sort of a wideish player into someone who plays right through the middle so quickly, and obviously his goal to game ratio is beginning to get up there with last season now.
They're both things where the rub of the green's gone with us, but in the same way as the goal at the end of the derby, the luck's only with you because you're there, because as you say, Mike, you're still on side, you're still present, and you're expecting it to happen. So it's a case of us being lucky but making our own luck at the same time.
Yeah, and through pressure as well.
Yeah,
definitely through pressure. Other thing I want to talk about was, having sort of covered bits of the defence, John, a couple of things. One, it's probably the first game keeper does make a save right the way through the game, and certainly looked to be himself irritated. But again, watching it back when you're not just putting your head and your hands in the ground, he looked to be himself irritated with himself on a couple of occasions after the balls hit the back of the net. And you know, he's it's good in a sense that he's able to come out the back of that, think, you know what, I'd like to think he thinks I wasn't great today, but the flip side is we won the game. Those lads up front dug me out in the way in which I've dug them out. It's a real one for the full side.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one with the keeper because, as you say, that there aren't any saves there, and I think what he's done is raise the bar in what we expect from a goalkeeper. And so, you know, if we are being a bit harsh on him, then it's sort of a backhanded compliment, I suppose.
He sets up the winner, really, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does kind of well for that.
Does brilliantly for it.
Yeah, I'd say the first one, I don't think he can do a huge amount about. I wouldn't say, because I mean, to be fair to from the first one, Palace really flood the box as well. That's another thing to talk about.
I watched it this morning, and there's if Townsend doesn't hit it, then there's someone else behind.
Yeah, and so that must be in your mind in a goalkeeper, in that, you know, if there's just one there, you can almost kind of set yourself for it, but he doesn't know where it's going to go, who's going to hit it, what's going to do, and so I think that's difficult. And the flood in the box, it'd be interesting to get into that maybe with Sean later, because it's a similar goal to the one we conceded against Man United, and in similar sort of situations as well, whereas they haven't crossed the line, they haven't even crossed the halfway line before then, but as soon as they do, I wonder whether teams are thinking, you won't get attacked much against Liverpool, so when you do, you know, really sort of pile in, and whether that's something that we need to think about, and certainly Firmino and Henderson, but anyway, we're talking about Alisson. I think the second one, that's the kind of one where, I mean, Rob's coming up a lot here, but I speak to him a lot at half time because he's in my stand, and he's telling me Mignolet should be coming for that. And it was during the phase where Rob felt every Liverpool goal was Mignolet's fault. But I think if you're saying that everything in the 6-yard box is goalkeepers, it's just out. It's about 7, is it? Would you say? I don't know. Maybe you nitpick.
It feels very high. It feels like a really high cross to me.
Yeah,
I think it's a great corner.
It feels too high for him to come for.
Maybe,
not exactly too. It's within his 6 yards.
I honestly think there's some. I think, for instance, you can have a conversation about, do they do a bit of a number on Van Dijk?
Well, they do enough, don't they? Because he can still jump, but they fouled him, but then they stopped fouling him to allow him to jump, but not enough. So it's good. It's great. It's a great defense. It's great from the attacker to foul Van Dijk like that.
There were 3 of them sort of in a line, weren't they? Sort of shoulder to shoulder, buffeting their way through. I think it's harsh, really, to say that he should definitely come.
No, I don't think he definitely should at all.
You know,
I'm just kind of
I see your point, John. I mean, but you know, if he comes for that and then misses it, then
I hadn't thought of it really. You might be right, John, but I just feel like it was really high. It was a high cross.
I think Tompkins heads it at an unbelievably high point. Like he gets up and he's heading it at a high point. It's the first time it's been at a level where anyone bar maybe Van Dijk could head it, and as you say, you know, they were interfering with him a little bit, so he couldn't get his jump. I honestly think it's a great corner. I almost feel like, you know, in the same way you were saying, you feel like it was a 4-2 and then it's a 4-3, but that's by the by. Yeah. I think if you want to sit around and have a chat about Liverpool from set pieces, I just think sometimes a lad's going to put a ball in and it's going to be firmly headed into the back of the net.
We're scoring many more than we're conceding at the moment.
It was the lad for Blackburn who scored. There was one at the same end, that lad who played for Blackburn scored. It was a goal all day. There was nothing you could do. He was going to come in and head that in the net.
He's a big one, really.
As soon as it left his foot, it was one of them where I went, that's in. And I've got a decent that's in ratio. It's not 100%, don't get me wrong. But
who's his?
But I was like, that's in. Because it was just absolutely... And it sounded like that old thing about, you know, sometimes you hear the way a ball's kicked. Yeah. And it just sounded like, oh God, he's got everything he wanted off that one. It was gorgeous.
So what he's in the team for.
But the third's not great.
No, but then we've all decided the third doesn't matter, haven't we? Didn't we decide before?
Yeah.
I think Adam called it and we all eyed rather than made.
Yeah, it's a 4-2.
Never went in. Don't care what anyone says. I think Salah, just to come back on that, I was trying to do the maths because it's actually quite difficult to find this out, Mike. I think he's about 4 behind where he was at this stage last season. I think at this stage last season in the league, I think he had about 20 from 23. But he's just, for instance, had the one where he gets both against the game where I'm including in that the game where he gets both against Leicester. He also gets a brace against Spurs around this sort of time. I think he's sort of a mad hat-trick away from being where he was last season, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean it's still he's top scorer in the league at the end of the day, isn't he? Yeah. Is it 16 league goals now?
16. Yeah.
I think the thing about his goals, they've all been the important goals, haven't they? They've been the goals that have come at the right time. Some, okay, a couple of them have been penalties, but it's the timing of them and the sort of crucial nature of them, just when you need one as well. When I said before about our ability this new ability to score without necessarily a build-up of pressure, it always seems to have been Salah who's got that goal. And yeah, I mean, obviously with 15 games to go, I mean, what would you be expecting from him? Maybe another 12 goals or whatever, maybe more. I mean, I mean, it's still a phenomenal performance, and his overall now is about 50 fastest to 50 goals in Liverpool's history. Or is it same as Torres?
He's in a funny position at the minute where he's at 50
Premier League goals.
He's got a couple for Chelsea. I think it'll be
for Chelsea.
We'll do the count when he's got the ball for Liverpool, I think, on that. Just the other thing I'd point out as well is out of the lads who've all got double figures this season. Hazard's got 10 goals, 10 assists. Salah's got 16 goals, 7 assists, which is as many assists as anybody else who's also got 10, if you see what I mean. So
Kane's is pathetic, isn't it? He's got like 1 or something.
4. Get off his back. Yeah.
4's poor, I'd say.
You talk up don't talk the great man down with his big tongue.
Sir, is he Sir yet?
Sir Harry of Hotspur.
He's injured anyway.
He is injured. But I'll talk about that game. It was majesty. Anyway, other thing I wanted to say about the back four, because I keep getting sidetracked, Adam, is Robertson was again excellent throughout. I think, to make John's point that he made before, it's like there's some games of footy that, partially because of his own quality, partially because he's got Van Dijk in front of him, partially because of what oppositions do, where it is relatively straightforward for him, but he can only still be excellent, which he was.
It's funny, I was thinking about him driving here, and I was thinking, you can't say he's the player of the season, but it feels like it feels unfair because he doesn't sparkle. I don't know, what is he? Is he the people's princess? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he is. He's definitely. I mean, he feels like a fan's favourite, and he feels like it. It's almost like he's that reliably brilliant that you kind of need to remind yourself to talk about him. But I do think he is fabulous every single week. I think he is he's so important to our attack, and he's almost like the teams don't really try and attack him anymore because they know he's so good in defence as well. It's a funny one where I don't know. I feel like he should be winning the PFA Player of the Year, even though he's not. He's kind of, there's like Van Dijk and Salah and things ahead of him for our team, but he still feels like there should be some sort of nationwide recognition.
Maybe the phrase unsung hero was coined for him.
Yeah, I like the fact
that but Liverpool fans, it's not really that sensitive. But then, and
the fact that he's Scotland captain makes me happy. Like, I feel like I should, in the same way that if I go to Egypt, I'd be saying Liverpool to everyone. I feel like I should be doing that in Scotland as well, going around and saying Robertson here.
With your Andy Robertson t-shirt trying to fit in.
Yeah, the international language of football.
Henderson and Fabinho, Mike. It's strange to be a 4-3 and to talk, but this is why I think it is a little bit different from games like this we've seen in the past, where there was vast chunks where Liverpool did feel in control of the game, and then there'd be 3-4 minutes where it felt like it was just happening somewhere else. I think they were both very good, and I also liked them as a pair. It felt like a proper. I felt like they very much were able to help each other in the way in which central midfield partnerships sometimes do. I think we missed Wijnaldum as well, and that's why it's quite interesting. But I thought that as a pair, I thought that they were excellent at Wolves away after the first 15 minutes when everyone got used to the conditions, and I think they were excellent here.
Yeah, it's sort of a semi-unusual pairing for a Klopp side that you think is sort of all intent on attacking and being on the front foot, because both of them are sort of classic holding midfield players. So it's slightly unusual juxtaposition, but they do work well together. And I think the way that they shift the ball from each other, but also from side to side, both of them have got that sort of diagonal pass. I mean, obviously Fabinho's ball for Milner that creates the third goal is a great example. But you regularly see Henderson as well be able to sort of spread the play. But also, what I noticed the second half, the amount of very, very quick, sharp, short interpassing between them as well, which just keeps the opposition guessing and moves them around. And I think there was lots of that. And they do give you a solidity. I mean, I agree with you there in the sense that whilst there was an element of chaos in the scoreline, I think more at the end of the day, for the most part, I don't think Liverpool were really sort of chaotic for more than a couple of spells of 5 minutes throughout the game. I think for most of it, really, we were in control. We controlled it relatively well. Yes, we did miss Wijnaldum, but I think that's more down to the fact that Keita didn't have a particularly good game. But yeah, I mean, I thought they were both excellent. I think Henderson probably had his best game, other than maybe the last. I thought he got a bit frenetic last sort of 7 or 8 minutes. But apart from that, I thought he had his best game for a while.
Yeah, I thought they were both great, and I think they seem to enjoy playing with each other, which is nice as well, and something you can never really know until you try it. I think Henderson feels a bit freer with Firmino. I think that's fair to say, and I think Firmino maybe similar. I think they've got each other there, so they can take a few more risks on the pitch, which and as Mike says, the passing range of the pair of them is excellent, short and long. They pick the right pass as well more often than not, really. And yeah, I thought they were both kind of instrumental, and I agree with Mike's points about the control as well. It was interesting, Henderson after the game saying, we've normally got more control of that. I think if he watches it back, he's probably come off on a 4-3 and feeling
very 4-3.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas I think
he's screaming at these lads.
I think when they watch it back, you might realise that, as Mike says, they actually have more control over the game. I mean, the Palace goal is the only time they even get anywhere near our goal, and that's from controlling a game of football, isn't it? So just because you're not great in a certain situation doesn't mean you're not necessarily controlling the game of football. And I thought they did, and I thought the midfield was a big element to that.
Yeah, I think that there was absolutely no complaints. Basically, I think that the places where we weren't as good were the places where we didn't have what you'd say would be the first 11. So I think you can see you can imagine the clear improvement if we'd had Trent and Gomez. You can imagine the clear improvement if we'd had Wijnaldum, I think. And even though I think we said it off mic before, Neil, even though Shaqiri doesn't come on and do much, I just think that we looked like a more functional team once he was on, rather than Keita, who had a poor game. So I don't think there was there's any issues at all with Fabinho or Henderson. I think we sort of criticised them earlier a little bit for maybe not helping out Milner more, but I think it's probably not their fault. It's the fault of the fact that we don't have the first choice players in those positions.
On Keita, John, there is. I mean, it's first and foremost, I think it's difficult for him positionally, because it's this sort of semi-left brief, and then you get pulled at times to go very wide, and then it's when just tucked back in. And I think he's involved in a lot of sort of bits of closing down, a lot of stuff that's through channels and all of that sort of things. There are positional questions, but it is a little concerning. Again, he doesn't really grab it, and he does have chances too.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem quite on everyone else's wavelength at the moment, and so I think while there are positional issues and why he might be able to say, well, I'm being asked to do something slightly different, I think generally speaking, look, if you've got the ball at your feet and you've got teammates, then what's it matter what blade of grass you're on at that point? And I think he can be forgiven for some of his movements or his positioning, in terms of where he's playing, but some of his just play on the ball is just poor, and it's just a bit kind of thoughtless, or kind of you're not quite sure what he's trying to do, and you feel like his teammates are looking at him a bit like that as well. Like, I feel like we all stop a bit when it comes to him, because they're like, well, I won't make that run because I don't know when I'm going to, so I'll just sort of stand there and Naby will do something for a bit, and then he'll give one of us the ball, and then we can get on with the serious business. And it feels a little bit like that for me, and I don't know, I'm not sort of, I don't think any of us are going to write him off necessarily, and I think it takes him a full year to bed him, but at the moment, I felt that was an opportunity for him. We did a little video before the game for our social, didn't we? We were saying, well, it's an opportunity for him here, and I don't know, I wouldn't be rushing him back in next week, personally.
It's if you were of a mind to, you could do a real match of the day style hatchet job on him, I think, probably based on that performance. I won't do that. But there's, I think there's, as you say, John, it really was an opportunity for him, and I'm struggling to think about what we do kind of next. Really, I'm as I say, I'm not writing him off, but I think that we are almost playing with a hand behind our back when he's on there, and I think that you'd sort of say, where do you risk him next? Because I feel like there was something about the fact that something about what we've said in the past about Klopp teams kind of need everybody to be good for the system to work.
Yeah.
I think that isn't the case at the minute with Keita, and I do think he's gone backwards since, kind of good performances at Burnley was his last one. So
plays centre mid next to Henderson at Burnley.
Yeah, I know, and he's out of position. I suppose he plays that position that he played on Saturday at Bournemouth, and he's all right there, although slightly peripheral. Like I say, I was happy to see him in the team, and I was really looking forward to seeing him playing well in a confident Liverpool win, and it didn't really end up happening. And I do think there was part of the fact that he was playing meant that it wasn't the game that we hoped it would be.
Yeah, I mean it's probably hard to add to what both the lads have said. The thing that perhaps just struck me for the first time on Saturday was that he just looked a little bit lightweight. From the sort of the advertised sort of bulldozer of a player, that he just didn't. I don't know whether perhaps he's just struggling a little bit with the physicality of it.
Palace are a big team, aren't
they? They are, but also playing within himself as well, and being the type of player he is, noted for sort of taking players on. Then you've got to have the confidence to commit to that. And I think if you've got a player like that that is playing within himself and not taking chances, then they can look ordinary quite quickly, because they're taking away their USP basically. Their sort of noted main move, if you like. And I just thought he was a little bit sloppy. He looked a bit lightweight.
Part of it is that thing of what we were expecting, I guess, Mike. Because when you say lightweight, he did look lightweight, and that's not what we were promised. We thought we were getting this street fighting football player who was once tackled by a car. Literally, that's one of the stories we heard before he signed, and he does, and that's not the first time that he's kind of looked like he's had a kick and then not fancied it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though that Klopp wants to continue to play him, because I mean the option was there to have chosen Shaqiri ahead of him. So I think there is, I wouldn't say it's a desperation from Klopp to get him up to a level where he can be part of the squad and add something to the last sort of 15 games, but I think after Saturday that you might have to slightly just revise his opinion on that. But it will depend. It'll depend on availability. I mean, there'll be. I mean, Milner's suspended now, isn't he, for one game? So there might be other suspensions. There might be other injuries as the season goes on. So you can't just suddenly say, right, he's not going to figure anymore. Yeah. He has to still be involved, and I think that's why Klopp's still giving him the odd game.
But is there something like, it's interesting Adam used the phrase slightly peripheral, and one of the things that occurs to me when you stop to actually think about football is how well you watch a game of football where 11 players play well, of your players, and to extend that further, where you're able to say, if you've got, say, a front three, which we have, plus Keita, plus the two fullbacks in the final third in the second half of the pitch, I think it's difficult for all 6 of those football players for you to come away and feel like they were all genuinely involved. That's actually quite difficult for 6 attackers to all feel genuinely involved. And then I think his next issue, and it's ever slightly the case for the defence, but for instance, look at what they did. And Crystal Palace's entire plan is get the ball to Wilfried Zaha. If you can get it to him on the edge of our final third so we can counter-attack quickly, get it to him, then he turns and goes and he gets us up the pitch. If not, feed it out to the right, bring it back over to the left, put him back in as we approach their final third. That genuinely, you can almost boil it down to that's what those players want to do. But we've got 3 forwards who are all better than Zaha. We've got Andy Robertson playing left back, coming round you if you're Keita. And I just sort of wonder if, the sort of side he was in when he was in Leipzig, where if their plan is get it to Naby Keita and then let Naby do something with it and bring other people into the game. It is a bit of a culture shock to suddenly go from get it to Naby Keita, as it would be for Zaha, as maybe Zaha's found out, when it is, listen, Andy Robertson can do your job past you, and he can play left back at the same time.
You're definitely not going to get as many opportunities on the ball, and I think that's where the sort of the advertised Naby Keita is. I think off air we were talking about some pressing stats from the weekend, which indicated that he did quite a lot of unseen work, and as supporters you do miss things, but I think generally speaking just his ability to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, albeit that you've got other players in and around you who are charged with creating or having the creative spark, doing something out of the ordinary. I think if he wants to make an impression on the supporters and on Klopp, then he's got to be doing more to sort of actively get on the ball, and then once on the ball actually show something really that's a little bit out of the ordinary.
There's a few things there which, you know, as I say, if you were being really mean spirited, you could say just sort of doesn't speak a lot about kind of a character thing, because he gets away with one in terms of he makes a pretty bad sort of stamp at one point, and there's that along with kind of the way. I don't know what it is really, but you know, there's times where he's knocked off it too easily, or things break down with him too easily. There's just I am concerned that he might not be kind of settled and happy, I guess, and that might explain a lot of why he's kind of seems to be going backwards a bit. And I hope that there is something we can do to kind of bring him into the fold a bit more, because it might be that as much as anything else.
Shaqiri, I thought, as I said before, I don't think he has a massive impact. I take Adam's point that maybe we looked a little bit better balanced, John. There is a little thing, and I'm probably going to bring it up in the review. I think it's odd we've not seen him in any way, even for 2 minutes, particularly play off the left. That he's very left-footed. He's very good with his left foot, but he very much does appear that the manager has decided, and maybe this is just as simple as things he's seen in training, that he's going to play either through the centre or off that right-hand side.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that, but you're right. Maybe, you know, he spoke to the player, and the player said, you know, that's where I want to play and that's where I fancy it, and he's, you know, he didn't get a huge amount of time to work with him in the summer, did he? Sort of joined that American tour halfway through. So yeah, maybe he's just trusting the player at the moment and say, well, I know I've got more versatility in the other lads. You know, like Manny, for example. You know, he can obviously, you know, play either side, has done for us as well. He's used Mo in many different ways, and for me, you know, you know, he can play right back apparently now as well, and so, you know, I think maybe he's thinking, well, I'll just let sort of Shaq be Shaq at the moment, and then it might be sort of a more of a long term thing to use him in kind of different ways. But yeah, it means that kind of the Naby kind of is the one who kind of gets pushed out there. But I mean, Shaqiri wasn't great when he come on, but I don't think you can always.
As a sub, it's a rock hard.
He was in space a couple of times. You know, I think he got sent on to score a goal. I think it was a bit like Man United at home.
Score a goal,
lad. But like, because there's a mass defence in front of him there, same as United, and it's like, you know, just get one with a deflection on it. There's the chance that Mane has before he scores, where Shaqiri's in acres there, waiting to stick it in. I don't know. I'm prepared to give him a lot of benefit.
No, I am.
Absolutely.
I don't think
it's rock hard to be a sub.
I don't think necessarily playing on the left suits him particularly, because he hasn't really got blistering pace to go on the outside. I think he's far more suited shifting it back on the inside. So he, albeit very left-footed, not particularly suited to play on left side.
Just on the other thing, we've talked about Salah. Firmino ending up right back, Mike. All the front three grab goals again, and all three of them again. They show. I think you can maybe make an argument around you know, that they maybe all three show both strengths and weaknesses. Maybe Mane the most in that regard, but all three show absolutely massive strengths, including mental strength, as you were saying before. The very fact, the ease with which I actually think we deal best with Zaha. Arguably throughout the whole of the second half, when Firmino goes right back, he just goes over there and sorts it out. And it might be that Zaha's took a kick off Milner, and he's a bit withdrawn at that stage. But it genuinely was like, it was the bit where it looked the most straightforward. I think Firmino's second half was absolutely excellent.
He's just everywhere, isn't he? I mean, his engine. I mean, even with his goal, just picking it up in that position and then sort of driving at the defence. I know he was a bit lucky with the deflection, but you know, that takes sort of real intent, I think. And yeah, he looked.
I've stopped thinking about those as lucky, by the way, Mike. Those sorts of deflections. You're making that goal happen.
Absolutely. I mean, if it doesn't, I mean, it sort of clips the heel but actually carries on in the same direction. So I mean, it's probably not the luckiest goal of all time, but I think, just generally speaking, is his whole work rate, and I think he's the one that really just gives Liverpool that real feeling of an intense team, because he just never stops. He's constantly in perpetual motion, I think was the phrase we were looking for there. But yeah, he looked comfortable at right back. You know, of anyone in the side to go there, you sort of feel it that's.
But it's funny
it's
because
his thing, isn't it?
It's funny because Shaqiri went there and you could see him going down. I'm not
fancy
sure about that. Shaqiri, to be fair, went there. I think Firmino went, someone's going to have to do something about this. I guess it's me.
The other point you make there about the three of them all exhibiting their strengths at various times is that throughout the season, none of them have gone particularly long without scoring a goal. And there was always that old adage about, you know, goal scorers can be streaky and they can go, you know, sort of 6-7 games without a goal and then get a hat-trick, whatever. But throughout, they've always managed to remind yourself that they are the three that are charged with scoring the goals. We still don't get loads of goals from midfield. So the onus is on them, and consistently all the way through the campaign, they've chipped in and chipped in and chipped in. So, you know, hats off to the three of them, basically.
I think maybe Mane needs to do a little bit more at the moment, and I think he's the one where you can say that there are the strengths and weaknesses are on display. The thing I like most about Mane is that he's a proper warrior, and you know he scores in every round of the Champions League last season, and you know he's the one that you know will be there in a big moment. I just think in his general play, I think he has been better in the past, and I think I'd like to see a little bit more from him in terms of linking up a bit.
I think he's the one that's maybe suffered most from the slight change in the style of play, so that there's less on the counter and it's more controlled, because when he's
a little bit deeper as well.
Yeah, he's playing deeper, and there's been less opportunity to sort of fly at teams from deep as we've played on the counter. And I don't know whether it suits him quite as much as Salah's ability to play in that new position, or Firmino, which is all about sort of that industry that I spoke of before.
When he links with Robertson, it's when he's at his best, and he's done it all season, and maybe did it brilliantly at Leicester away. And I think that it's the fact that he's not able to do that probably as much in this different position. I know, Neil, you like him as a number 10, and I'm not sure I quite agree. I haven't quite seen that from the. As much as I'd like. I think his weight of pass is sometimes a bit off.
I don't think he does it like he's not going to suddenly become Pablo Aimar.
No, I know.
In terms of, but be that sort of quintessential. What I agree that sometimes his weight of pass is a bit off, but it can also be absolutely spot on. I think that the thing he brings to so many aspects of the game, which is that there's a bit of an unpredictability / inconsistency, is there when he does it. But I think when he hits his straps with it, I think you know you can have half an hour where he's capable of anything. He's capable of getting to. He's capable of putting people in. For, you know, I think the thing you said before about when he should square it late on, I think it's a really good point, and I think he probably should. I think if you play in that role as a conventional sort of player and you end up there, you do find the pass, but then he goes on and he gets the one that makes it 4. So,
and I was 100% expecting him to slot it when he does. So you know it's fine, isn't it? I'm maybe picking holes unnecessarily, but I think that when you say the strengths and weaknesses on display from all three, I'm not sure really. I haven't seen too many weaknesses from Firmino and Salah. You maybe criticise Salah for not being as good at diving as you'd like him to be.
I think there's a little. Not Salah less so on the weaknesses. I think there was a little bit first half of me wanting. I think it's quite weird for Firmino in that I think it was the same last season. I think he clicks in and out of games, and what I mean is he can just sort of sometimes take half an hour to work out where all the space is, and then he's worked out where all the space is. But for instance, I think that's one of the I think there's other reasons why we come alive a lot in the 10-15 minutes before half time, but I think one of them is Roberto Firmino's almost like a Rubik's Cube. He's worked the game out now, and it's all right, but for that first half an hour you can sometimes feel like, where's that little bit of something, where's the next dimension coming from? And I think it's Firmino working it out, and more of that from Salah recently as well.
I think Firmino is still getting used to the position a little bit as well, and just because he's so versatile, and just because you know he's got so much to his game, and just because we think his skill set suits that position he's playing in now, doesn't mean that it, you know, wouldn't necessarily take him a little bit of time to kind of adapt, because you know he sort of, you know, we spent quite a lot of time working on him as a number 9, didn't we? And kind of got there, and then he was great, and now we've kind of, you know, changed it again, and that's why I'm really positive about his goal, because I think that's the kind of thing he can and should be doing more in those spaces, really. And I think he was never a number 9 to, you know, to lose his man in the box or whatever, or to do a dart and run and things. You know, he was never quite that 9 really. And I think that kind of picking up space in the box and then driving kind of suits him more really. And I think it's maybe similar-ish to the goal he gets against PSG. Not quite as eye-catching, but
and maybe similar to the one he gets against Arsenal.
I was going to say Arsenal as well.
Yeah.
It's similar in mood as well. Like he's taking the responsibility here.
And I quite like it when a footballer works out their goal and then does a lot of it. It's good, and it does happen, and you see it go, oh yeah, I'll just keep doing that. Like Salah did a little bit of it last year, didn't he? And I think there's much more because his feet are so quick, and his finishing's sure, and I think there is I think there's more to come from Firmino in this position. I think we'll see it between now and the end of the year.
In the big picture, Mike, Manchester City won at Huddersfield, which we were all expecting. Spurs get themselves a last-minute winner at 19th place Fulham. You'd expect Spurs to win that game, that they had to work a bit harder for it. I think actually speaks to the quality that Fulham have got in midfield and attack as much as it does anything else, and that Spurs have got their own problems at the minute. But there is a certain... Whilst that game against Crystal Palace was in and of itself a stressful one from a Liverpool point of view, there is a certain sort of straightforward purity about the thing that's in front of us here. There aren't many points we can afford to drop, so therefore we cannot afford to drop any points. This league isn't going to be won with 85 points. It's not even February yet, and we've got 60. That tells that story, I think, as emphatically as anything else does. That's the challenge, isn't it, really? I think all the stuff, I'm quite enjoying the speed with which it's just becoming noise. Liverpool have got to win every game. If Man City drop points because they played first, we'd have to win. If Man City win when they play first, we'd have to win. We've just got to win every game. It's straightforward in a sense.
Well, it's been like that for some time, hasn't it? Albeit in a slightly different sense, because throughout the autumn it sort of felt that there was that sort of potential 5-point gap between us every time that we potentially didn't win. And then there was the sudden shift, and now the boot's on the other foot. But yeah, so just in terms of the whole old style way of thinking, take each game as it comes. I think there's a comfort in that. Just looking at the broader picture of what Liverpool have got left. I mean, the majority of the games you think that they're well capable of winning. There's a few standout fixtures that you'd look and say potentially we drop points, but I think that obviously as the number of games ticks down, that 4-point gap means a lot more, because City will not go through the rest of the season without dropping more points. And I was looking at it over the weekend, and I think Liverpool might be able to afford to drop something like 10 points and still win the league. So
got upset Adam there, with that sort of talk. He doesn't want you to let that doubt enter into his mind, Adam. Mike, let anyone else.
Mike, did you do the maths?
At 96, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or no, hang on.
Yeah, we've dropped 9 so far. So
I think 95 probably wins the league. So
we're not far away from.
No, I know.
Are we?
It sounds a lot when you said it.
Yeah, I can't. Much as I think 95 wins the league, I don't think we can afford to drop 10 points.
And if the maths doesn't work out, then sorry.
We've got a flavour of it on Saturday, but you've also got to think as it gets closer, then the whole mental side gets much more acute as well.
Absolutely.
And both these sides have been playing under incredible mental strain for some time now. And you just wonder what the cumulative effect of that is going to be. Then there's the complication of the Champions League. City have got other commitments as well. And as much as both of them have been brilliant at winning well, but also grinding out wins, I just don't think that can continue for the whole season.
Yeah, it's just law of averages, luck and things, and that's why I get annoyed when 13-14 people talk about that Chelsea game and focus so much on that. It's basically they can't just win forever. Like they were going to lose a game eventually. Whether we were all hoping it was next season, but they were going to lose, and they were going to have a bit of bad luck or whatever, and have a game where it couldn't have runs out, and it was that one. And similar to kind of this season when I was, having my, conversations at half time and trying to sort of calm Bob down or whatever. But my thing is we haven't dropped a single point to a team outside the top 5, and at some point we will. And it's all about, in that situation, so how you keep your head as much as anything, really.
Yeah, it's going to be because I don't expect us to win every game, and it's about the response to the changing situation, I guess.
The important thing to emphasise, though, Adam, is just how fabulous this is, how unprecedented it is, really. To literally be played 23, won 19, drawn 3, lost 1. it's the third or fourth best start to a season ever. I think if we win if we win the next two, I think it becomes the best anyone has ever been after however many 25 games. It becomes the best anyone's ever been after 25 games if we win the next two. Phil Blundell tweeted yesterday that it's January the 20th and this Liverpool side has got more points than Liverpool got in the following seasons: 92, 93, 98, 99, 2004, 5. They did all right that year. 2010, 11 and 2011, 12. And it's January the 20th, and they've got more points than they got in those ones. It's absolutely crackers, the football we're getting to watch right now, and we're privileged.
It's the same number of points that we're on now that we finished on when Leicester won the league, I think. So we are massively privileged, and I will look back on it very fondly, I'm sure.
When you sat in your tree in the summer.
Yeah, well, wherever I am in the summer, I will look back on this very fondly. But at the moment, within it, it's ups and downs.
Can someone get Adam Melia 10 days of warm weather training, please? Let him freshen himself up, rest his legs, and move on from there. That's what Liverpool have gone off to do. Listen, there's loads of fantastic stuff on the Anfield Wrap about this game and about the challenge that is to come. It's a complex, rich challenge. We're also going to be talking gutter and transfers and having a little look around the league and seeing what everybody else is up to. To be fair to them, a lot of the better sides they're tending to win, and a lot of the poorer sides they're tending to lose. But there are more good sides in this league than you think. And what we didn't get to talk about on this was how good Crystal Palace could be. To be fair to their manager, he can set a side up. He can really get good shape out of a back four. But for me, that's a side that should not be trailing, knocking around in 14th. For me, that's a top 10 team. What I'm trying to say, in short, is that Crystal Palace have got better players than Everton. Thank you very much to John Gibbons, Adam Melia, and Mike Nevin. It's been the Anfield Wrap in association with RedsBet. Take it easy.